Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahabushai, Bahasham, Barakahak Wadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahabushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule and teach well. And peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another lesson, and I'm going to start it off with an article from the JerusalemPost.com titled, Watch, Shame on Them. Prime Minister Netanyahu slams Macron's call for arms embargo on Israel. And hey, the walls are closing in for the 1948ers over in the Holy Land right now, calling themselves the children of the Most High, which they're not. The true children of the Most High, the true children of Israel, are known as the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Those people over there are actually Edomites of the tribe of Amalek, and they do not fit any prophecies dealing with what the children of Israel would be going through when they were back in the Holy Land. But they do fulfill the prophecies dealing with the Edomites, getting the land into their possession, as it says in Ezekiel 36 verse 5, and what? Taking on the identity of the children of Israel. Netanyahu rebukes Western leaders for advocating an arms embargo on Israel, accusing them of undermining Israel's defense, while Iran continues to arm its proxies across the Middle East. Shame on them, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared on Saturday night as he sharply rebuked French President Emmanuel Macron and other Western leaders calling for an arms embargo on Israel. And hey, this is also showing that the house of Esau Edom is divided. And what does it say? And Mark chapter 3 verses 24 to 25. And if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. The house or race of Esau is divided because you've got a lot of these Edomites, so-called white people in these other Western countries, as we're reading in that article, starting to try to rein in Israel and what they're doing over in that region, because they know that it's just going to blow back on them. And if Israel does something to spark a major war with Iran, which they will, read Jeremiah 49 verse 20, the least of the flock shall draw them out, that they're going to get drawn into it. And also, as it says, if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. Not just these 1948ers, but also these other, Edomite countries are divided amongst themselves. You've got these, Western European nations looking at America sideways because, America is constantly doing things to draw them into conflict and, mess up their economic situation and political situation, such as with that war in Ukraine, which those European nations are feeling the most blowback from since they had a lot of economic ties with Russia. And then you've got America, looking at their European allies, with disdain. What did you have during Donald Trump's presidency? And even, things Donald Trump has been saying recently, that Europe needs to, burden their, cost when it comes to NATO. So you're just seeing divisions everywhere amongst Esau, Edom. And as it said, where there is division, there will be a fall. And we are living in the last days, the last seconds, the twilight hours of Esau, Edom's rulership before he's taken out of power. And, the children of Israel are back in power. But that's a quick side note. So now I'm going to play this little 2-minute clip, and this is a fair use copyright disclaimer. I do not own any of the footage in this clip, nor do I stand to gain from it monetarily. It is simply for educational purposes.
I have a message. I have a message for President Macron. Today, Israel is defending itself on 7 fronts against the enemies of civilization. We're fighting in Gaza against Hamas, those savages who murdered, raped, beheaded, and burned our people on October 7th. We're fighting in Lebanon against Hezbollah, the most heavily armed terror organization in the world, which was planning an even greater massacre than October 7th on our northern border, and that has rocketed Israeli towns and cities for nearly a year.
And what did Netanyahu just say? The state of Israel is fighting, on multiple fronts. Just another cut to those 1948ers not being, the true children of the Most High or fitting any prophecies dealing with the children of Israel back in their land. This is Isaiah chapter 60, verse 18. Violence shall no more be heard in thy land, which, as we just heard from Bibi Melkowski, that's clearly not the case. Wasting nor destruction within thy borders. Just the other day, what happened? Iran shot, hundreds of missiles into the land of Israel. But thou shalt call thy walls salvation and thy gates praise.
We're fighting against the Houthis in Yemen and the Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria that together have launched hundreds of drones and missile attacks against Israel. We're fighting against terrorists in Judea and Samaria who are trying to murder civilians in the heart of our cities. And we're fighting against Iran, which last week fired over 200 ballistic missiles directly at Israel, and which stands behind the 7-front war against Israel. As Israel fights the forces of
Slovakia.
I have a message,
and
which stands behind the 7-front war against Israel. As Israel fights the forces of barbarism led by Iran, all civilized countries should be standing firmly by Israel's side. Yet President Macron and some other Western leaders are now calling for an arms embargo against Israel. Shame on them. Is Iran imposing an arms embargo on Hezbollah, on the Houthis, on Hamas, and on its other proxies? Of course not. The axis of terror stands together. But countries who supposedly oppose this terror axis call for an arms embargo on Israel. What a disgrace. Well, let me tell you this. Israel will win with or without their support. But their shame will continue long after the war is won. For in defending ourselves against this barbarism, Israel is defending civilizations against those who seek to impose a dark age of fanaticism on all of us. Rest assured, Israel will fight until the battle is won, for our sake and for the sake of the peace and security of the entire world.
Hey, if a house be divided, that house cannot stand. And hey, there's a lot of shame being spewed upon the, former glory of you 1948ers. You're getting exposed at all levels, first and foremost, by the prophets, the men of the Lord, chiefly of GMS or Great Millstone, going into the scriptures, going into biblical prophecy, showing that you just don't fit the bill. But that's it with this article. But hey, everybody is starting to turn against those 1948ers. This is where do I want to go? I'll go to this article on MiddleEastMonitor.com. Several delegations leave Netanyahu's UN General Assembly speech. A group of diplomats, including the Iranian delegation, interrupted 1948 Prime Minister Benjamin Milkowski's speech on Friday before the United Nations as they walked out of the General Assembly headquarters in New York. And Agence France Presse correspondent reported that diplomats left the hall upon Netanyahu's arrival. And, when we go back, I was going through a few of these articles. Some of those delegates that walked out were, from Indonesia and, from Turkey as well, which, when you read in Ezekiel chapter 38, Turkey or Gomer is going to be one of those nations under Gog or Russia that's going to be coming against, America and, the 1948ers. So again, a shameful spewing is coming upon the glory of you 1948ers and just you Edomites as a whole. This is Obadiah chapter 1. I'm going to read verses 1 to 2. And what does the header read? Edom will be humbled. The vision of Obadiah. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh concerning Edom. We have heard a rumor from Yahweh, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. But you're seeing, a lot of those different nations in the so-called Middle East, and hey, their proxy forces rising up against the 1948ers. And just in general, these different nations around the world are rising up against you Edomites, especially in the West, especially America. Verse 2, behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. Thou art greatly despised, talking about your reputation. And as we just read in that article, you had several delegates walk out before Bibi started his speech, because people are getting, sick of you 1948ers and all the chaos you constantly bring. But now I'm going to go to Micah chapter 4, and I'm going to read verses 1 to 3. Hey, like I've been saying throughout the video, you 1948ers just do not fit the bill when it comes to biblical prophecy dealing with what the children of Israel would be going through when they were back in the Holy Land. And what does the header read? Peaceful latter days. And when you're in a 7-front war, that doesn't sound like peaceful latter days. But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain or the government of the house of Yahweh shall be established in the top of the mountains. The kingdom of Israel fully established with the 144,000 of the elect as the governing body, and all these other heathen nations underneath the nation of Israel. And it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow unto it. And many nations, many heathen nations shall come and say, come and let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh and to the house of the power of Jacob. And he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths, which we're clearly seeing is not the case with those 1948ers. Their own allies are starting to call for, restrictions against them, such as France and other Western nations calling for an arms embargo. And then you had several delegates walk out on Bibi before he gave that speech at that UN General Assembly. And he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For the law shall go forth of Zion, and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. And you clearly see that this earth isn't being governed under the laws, statutes, and commandments in the scriptures, which would be the case when the children of Israel were back in rulership. And even now, what do you have? You have Tel Aviv over, in the Holy Land, known as Pink City, and it's one of the pride or alphabet hotspots on the face of the earth. And then they've got a separate parliament and, governmental laws that they go by separate from the scriptures. Verse 3, and he shall judge among many people and rebuke strong nations afar off. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up a sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. So when the true children of Israel are back in the Holy Land, these nations wouldn't be making weapons of war or waging war anymore, which again is clearly not the case with those 1948ers. They're in a 7-front war right now, and World War III hasn't even kicked off yet. And when they got that land into their possession fully, after 1948, you immediately had the Arab-Israeli War. You had the 6 Days War in the 1960s, and just many wars taking place ever since and as we speak. So, hey, you just don't got it, Amalek. And as we get closer and closer to the end, hey, you're going to be exposed that much more. But now, I'm going to close it out in Revelation chapter 2, verse 9, which even Candace Owens, when she was going against that 1948er in that debate on Piers Morgan's show, hey, she brought out this scripture, cutting, you 1948ers. And that Amalekite Edomite had nothing to say when she brought this out. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, which those 1948ers definitely, aren't poor out here. They're the heads of all the major industries out here, from Hollywood to banking, etc., etc. But who is the poorest people out here? Your so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, looked at as the scum of society, the first fired, the last hired, and just a laughingstock to these different nations. But thou art rich because you are the true children of Israel, and we are about to be back in our rightful position at the top. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are JOOs and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. And who has synagogues out here and who's calling themselves the people of the book when they clearly do not fit any of the prophecies of what the people of the book would be going through before they got into the Holy Land and when they were finally back into the Holy Land. So that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. We are almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And at the head of the Edomites, those Amalekites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.